What was it that you was feeling like was so evil? Industry. Yeah. Industry itself. Yeah. Don't give a goddamn what nobody say. They tell you something different, they lying.
To really be associated with that. Right. That ain't in my best interest. Right.
Well, if that's the take on it, I have no choice but to separate myself, you know, just due to what's best for me and mine.
Don't know about it. I ain't no snitch. I don't work for the DEA, none of that. They use my loyalty against me. And that's how I feel is happening right here. With this thing with me and Tip, you know what I'm saying?
The name Alpha Omega used to echo through the streets like a warning and a legend all at once. Standing tall at 6'4", built like a linebacker, he carried the kind of battle scars that told stories without words. He wasn't just another rapper. He was the hype man and enforcer for one of hip-hop's biggest icons, T.I.
Alpha wasn't always Alpha. Alpha was Sid, baby. You know what I mean? Two different people.
You ain't know him right now. He probably robbed y'all for this camera shit and all that. Like, for real, I'm dead ass serious.
Shit, man, I on the shot, nigga, man.
And just when it looked like he was about to claim his own spot in the game, everything came crashing down. He got dropped from the crew, some paperwork popped up, and suddenly people started calling him a snitch. In a flash, all that heat he built vanished. The man who was just inches from the spotlight got pushed straight into the shadows. Let's rewind. Cedric Zellers wasn't just from Atlanta, he was made in it. Born in Techwood Homes, a place that carried deep history on his shoulders. Built back in the 1930s, Techwood was actually the first public housing project in America. But by the time Cedric came into the world on June 2, 1972, that legacy had flipped. What started as something historic had turned into a hard reality, where survival was the only goal. He once described it as a world of predator and prey, a city within a city, where the streets were patrolled by the Red Dogs, a police unit known for moving through like they owned the block. Violence wasn't a choice there. It was the air people breathed. At just 3 years old, Cedric saw things no child should ever see. His father hurting his mother so badly that she lost teeth. That kind of pain shapes a person forever.
He used to beat my mama like that. Like, he beat my mama. He stomped my mama. He stomped my mama teeth out. That trauma like that really f***ed me up. It was like I got f***ed up at a young age.
By the time Cedric Zellers hit 9 years old, he was already getting the system's attention. Not for anything major yet, just little street hustles. He started small, swiping boxes of Twinkies and selling them to neighbors for a few bucks. But in the projects, small moves don't stay small for long. You either level up or get left behind. Then came the late 80s, and Atlanta got hit by something that changed everything. Crack era. It tore through the city like a storm no one could escape. By 1988, Cedric was 16 and deep in the fast life. Folks around Techwood called him Techwood Ced, and his name carried weight. The money came fast, and he bragged later about having $26,000 stashed away. Real cash for a teen in that time. He spoiled his girlfriend, spent freely, and lived loud.
I had 26,000, man. Jewelry, the car, the girl I messed with, Keisha, I had got her maximum, 87 maximum, is an 88.
But that kind of money came with darkness. Ced wasn't just hustling, he was enforcing. In his world, respect wasn't optional, and anyone who crossed the line paid for it. His temper and boldness made his name echo far past Techwood's borders. 2 moments from that era locked in his reputation. The first involved a well-known neighborhood figure nicknamed Big Bird. One rainy night in Atlanta, after things got tense, Ced spotted Big Bird sitting in his 5.0 Mustang. Without hesitation, Ced came out with 2 guns, a .38 and another piece, and started firing. But the slick ground betrayed him. He slipped and fell face first in the mud while chaos erupted. Big Bird ducked behind his car and fired back with a .45. The sound of shots bounced through the projects like thunder. Ced somehow managed to retreat, grabbed another weapon from his cousin Lonzo, and ran back out looking for Big Bird again. The chase ended inside an apartment building, wild, reckless, and proof that Ced didn't seem to care if he lived or not.
I can't let this dude disrespect my girl, and you disrespect my name. You doing it loud in front of everybody. I go down there, and I pop him, and I pop him 5 times. You know, I popped him in both his legs. put the gun to his head, pulled the trigger 3 times, and then shit.
That night made everyone realize just how far Ced was willing to go. That same night, back at his mother's house, Cedric fired the same gun into the air, and it went off perfectly. That moment hit him like a brick. He realized he had just tried to end someone's life over pure street pride, and that shook him to his core.
As the early 90s rolled in, Cedric's life became a revolving door. The streets, then jail, then back to the streets again. He caught time for dealing, got released, and slipped right back into the same grind. But in 1995, everything took a sharp turn. Cedric got caught selling firearms to an undercover federal agent, and that changed everything.
By the time I got locked up, when I called the Fed gun charge.
Now, this wasn't just a local issue, this was federal. And since Ced already had a felony robbery on his record, the feds didn't play around. Federal gun charges are tough. When you get sentenced, you serve at least 85% of your time. No early exits. The guidelines hit hard, estimating around 110 months, more than 9 years behind bars. At just 23 years old, Cedric was facing the loss of his entire youth. He was shipped off to federal prison, and this time, it felt heavier than ever. Just doing time wasn't enough anymore. Cedric started searching for a way out. According to U.S. District Court records from Georgia, something major went down in October 1995. Cedric made a move. He agreed to cooperate with federal agents. He sat down with investigators, got debriefed, and started sharing info about serious criminal operations happening in Atlanta. The main focus was a man named Ali Bakar, accused of being a major figure in the city's underworld. This wasn't some low-level street case. The feds were building a huge investigation and needed someone credible from the inside who could connect the dots. Cedric fit the role perfectly. He didn't just give quiet statements. He met directly with a DEA agent and a federal prosecutor, helping them prepare for trial under his legal name, Cedric Zellers. Later, the world would come to know him as alfamega, but in that courtroom, he was a government witness in the case United States versus Ali Bakar. His testimony carried serious weight. Ali Bakar was eventually convicted of conspiracy to distribute, and Cedric's statements were a key piece of that federal puzzle.
I didn't come back home in 2002. I did 7 years, 4 days, 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 16 seconds, dog.
In the federal system, substantial assistance is the only real key to escape those mandatory years, and Cedric Zellers used it. In July 1997, the government gave him credit for cooperating. Judge J. Owen Forrester approved a sentence reduction, shaving 18 months off his time. His sentence dropped from 110 months to 92, a year and a half of freedom bought through cooperation. Locked away forever in federal records, Cedric spent most of his time at USP Lompoc in California, far away from Atlanta and everything familiar. The name Techwood Ced slowly faded, and something new started forming in his place. Inside those walls, he wrote endlessly. Songs, screenplays, book ideas, thousands of pages poured out of him. He was sketching out a second life, one that didn't end behind bars. He convinced himself his old life was gone, that the hustler was buried and a new artist was being born. But he was wrong, because when Cedric Zellers finally walked out of federal prison in February 2002, the world outside looked nothing like the one he left behind. The internet had exploded. Hip-hop had gone full bling era, and Southern rap wasn't begging for respect anymore. It was dominating the charts. Cedric had missed all of it, but while he lost time, he didn't waste it. Inside what he later called Gladiator School, he rebuilt himself mentally, physically, and creatively. He wasn't just lifting weights or watching his back on the yard. He was writing like a man possessed. By his own count, he came home with over 1,700 songs, 3 screenplays, and a non-fiction book already written in his mind. Prison took away his freedom, but it gave him something powerful: focus. He turned pain into purpose, trauma into material, and believed he was ready to start again, even though he hadn't seen the outside in 7 years.
Most people think Alpha Omega's comeback story began right in Atlanta with T.I., but that's not how it went down. There's a whole missing chapter that usually gets skipped over. When Cedric got released, he didn't head straight to Bankhead. He went to Philadelphia, and that's where things took an unexpected turn. His first big cosign didn't come from the king of the South. It came from the Broad Street bully himself, Beanie Sigel. At the height of the Rockefeller Records era, Alpha Omega found himself sitting in Beanie Siegel's mother's living room in Philly.
I got offered my first record deal 2 weeks out of prison. Beanie Sigel offered me my first record deal in his mother's living room.
Imagine that, a man who once ran the streets of Techwood, now in the middle of Philly's rap royalty, right when Rockefeller was ruling the game. The rebirth of Alpha Omega had officially begun. Back then, Beanie Siegel's word carried serious weight. He wasn't the polished industry type. He was raw, real, and respected for spotting pretenders a mile away. When Cedric Zeller stepped into Beanie's mother's living room and started rapping, it wasn't some showy performance. It was real. He spit bars right there in front of Beanie, his mom, and sister, and when he finished, the room was silent. Then Beanie nodded in respect. Sigel could feel the authenticity. This wasn't just another guy pretending to be street. This was a 6'4" ex-con who had lived everything he was rapping about. He didn't sound desperate or like he was begging for a break. He sounded hungry and unbreakable. According to Alpha Omega, Beanie was so impressed that he offered him a deal on the spot. But then came the moment that shocked everyone. Cedric turned it down. He looked Beanie dead in the eye and said, "I'm a boss like you. I just wanted you to hear me." He wasn't out there begging for a savior. He was demanding respect, not rescue. To make it even clearer, he paid Beanie for his time, something unheard of for a rapper just out of prison. That move set him apart instantly. He wasn't another artist chasing clout. He was a man staking his claim. And after that day, he didn't need to brag or shout for validation. If Beanie Sigel respected you, the streets had no choice but to listen.
I turned him down. I told him, no disrespect, I'm a boss like you. I just want to make sure you feel me. I'm going to pay you $5,000 for wasting your time. Boom. And I did. Like, man, you liked it. You know what I'm saying? So my point's been proven. My point got proven.
By 2005, Alpha Omega was back in Atlanta, and the city was on fire. The rap scene was unstoppable, and at the center of it all stood T.I., making his leap from street star to global superstar. But with fame came new problems. The higher T.I. climbed, the less he could show that same edge that once defined him. He needed someone beside him who could still project that street energy, someone who made the image believable. That's where Alpha Omega came in. That connection wasn't random either. Cedric actually knew T.I.'s father, known around the block as Daddy, and even had ties to his uncle. There was a foundation of trust, real history, and mutual respect. When Alpha Omega stepped into the Grand Hustle circle, it wasn't through contracts or PR deals. It was through a handshake built on street code. T.I. was the king, and Alpha Omega became the muscle behind the throne. For the next few years, Cedric played his part perfectly. He became Grand Hustle's silent enforcer, that tall, intimidating figure who stood just behind the artist, saying nothing but commanding the room. And when situations got tense, he didn't just talk, he acted. That presence gave Grand Hustle something real, the kind of street authenticity that couldn't be faked. Then came 2007, the year everything reached its peak. The record, Hurt, featuring Alpha Omega and Busta Rhymes, dropped, and it was pure fire. The lyrics were intense, full of revenge, home invasions, and raw energy. The video shoot itself turned into Atlanta legend. This wasn't some Hollywood set filled with actors. The crowd was real street figures, former NFL players, known names from different hoods. People even drove in from Alabama and Texas just to stand behind Alpha Omega on camera. The energy that day was electric, wild, chaotic, and 100% authentic.
You know what it is. Plus I got 100 goons with me, dressed in black.
In the middle of all that, T.I. pulled a surprise move. He tossed out for Omega the keys to a tour bus and said, "It's yours." The message was clear. Loyalty had been rewarded. But here's where the story takes a twist that most people didn't see coming. At that very moment, T.I. was leading the public Stop Snitching movement, preaching loyalty, silence, and street honor. The Grand Hustle image was built on that code, yet the man standing there holding those keys, the symbol of that loyalty, had once quietly cut Tom off his federal sentence by testifying in a major case years before. The industry bought into the image completely. No one had dug deep enough to find the old federal paperwork sitting in an archive. The truth was hidden, sealed away, and the world had no idea. That was the height of Alpha Omega's enforcer era, when image, loyalty, and secrets all collided under the same spotlight. To understand how it all started falling apart, you have to rewind to November 24th, 2008, the night of the Dirty Awards in Atlanta. The tension between Grand Hustle and Shorty Lowe's D4L crew had been brewing for months. This wasn't some friendly rap rivalry, this was territorial, and the energy was dangerous. Bankhead wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a battleground. T.I. claimed it, but Shorty Lowe actually lived it. The air that night was thick with hostility, and everyone in the room could feel it. When Shorty Lowe hit the stage to perform They Know, a track the Grand Hustle camp saw as a direct shot at T.I., everything exploded. For someone like Alpha Omega, that was pure provocation. Witnesses and police reports later confirmed what happened next. The Grand Hustle section erupted mid-performance, and then came the moment. Alpha Omega grabbed a chair and launched it straight at the stage. That single move set off absolute chaos. Artists jumped out of their seats, fists started flying, bottles were tossed, and before long, police were forced to use pepper spray just to break it all up.
He saw the movement, you know what I'm saying? That's why he jumped off the stage while the song was going, you know, by himself, you know. And he, you know what I'm saying, made what was out. Somebody flatlined was out.
The scene was total mayhem. A few minutes later, T.I. came on stage to accept an award, trying to cool things down and publicly call for peace, but it was way too late. The energy had already gone off the rails. The show was shut down early, and Alpha Omega ended up pepper sprayed, arrested, and escorted out in handcuffs. Years later, this wild moment took an unexpected and almost tragic twist. Alpha Omega revealed that the man he clashed with that night, Shorty Lowe, wasn't really an enemy at all. In fact, one of Alpha Omega's children's mothers was Shorty Lowe's sister. They were practically family. Looking back, Alpha Omega called it a huge misunderstanding, something fueled by pride, loyalty, and a refusal to back down in public. He said he only acted because he thought Shorty Lowe was about to throw a drink on him and claimed it was self-defense. But at that point, none of that mattered anymore. The only image that stuck in people's minds was that chair flying through the air. That became the symbol of Alpha Omega's time as Grand Hustle's muscle, the man who never hesitated, the guy everyone knew would ride for the team no matter what.
I can't afford to really be associated with that. Right. That ain't in my best interest. Right.
Well, if that's the take on it, I have no choice but to separate myself, you know, just due to what's best for me and mine.
By the end of 2008, Alpha Omega's reputation was solid, untouchable, unpredictable, and fearless. He was seen as the one who'd crash out for Grand Hustle, the enforcer who didn't think twice before acting. His debut album, I Am Alpha Omega, was already lined up for early 2009, and it looked like his moment was finally about to come. But fate had other plans waiting right around the corner. It looked like Alpha Omega was finally about to flip his street reputation into a real rap career, or at least that's what he thought. While he was making headlines in Atlanta, a journalist from the Smoking Gun was quietly digging through old federal court files from Georgia, and what they found would change everything. No amount of loyalty or muscle could protect him from what came next.
I don't work for no DEA.
Have you ever?
I never worked for the DEA.
Okay.
I had a gun charge. That's an ATF charge.
Okay.
I don't work for the DEA. I driven a jab and selling drugs when I was young.
Allegations of cooperation and an exile from Grand Hustle. On May 5th, 2009, the Smoking Gun dropped a bombshell. A PDF titled Rap Star's Protege Once Worked as DEA Informant, Government Witness. Inside were official federal court documents, straight from the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, dating all the way back to 1995. According to those files, when Cedric Zellers was facing a possible 110-month federal sentence for selling firearms to an undercover agent, he had made a major decision. He agreed to cooperate with authorities. The paperwork detailed how he was formally debriefed about drug operations linked to a man named Ali Bakar.
What was it that you was feeling like was so evil?
Industry.
Yeah,
Industry itself.
yeah.
I don't give a goddamn what nobody say. They tell you something different, they lying.
And it didn't stop there. The documents even showed the receipt of that cooperation. On July 25, 1997, Judge J. Owen Forrester signed an order officially reducing Cedric's sentence for what the court called substantial assistance. His time dropped from 110 months down to 92, a full 18 months shaved off. It was the same story Cedric thought was long buried, now resurfacing for the entire world to see. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Just days later, T.I., the king of the South, was preparing to report to federal prison himself for his 2007 firearms case, the one that had blown up after his own bodyguard, Corey Williams, secretly wore a wire during a gun deal. T.I. was already under heavy scrutiny, trying hard to prove that he hadn't cooperated with anyone, trying to keep his street credibility intact. So when news broke that his right-hand enforcer, the face of Grand Hustle's toughness, had federal paperwork floating around with his name on it, the situation became explosive. T.I. moved fast. Within hours, he called in to Atlanta's Hot 107.9, going straight into damage control mode. On air, he sounded stunned and careful with his words. He told listeners that he was completely shocked by what had come out about Alpha Omega, saying he had no prior knowledge of any of it. The shock waves hit hard, not just in Atlanta, but across the hip-hop scene. The man once seen as Grand Hustle's ultimate soldier now had his loyalty questioned in the worst possible way, on record in black and white for the world to read. That revelation would mark the beginning of the end for Alpha Omega's rise and the start of his public downfall. When T.I. finally spoke publicly, he didn't hold back. He made it clear that everyone around him was expected to be transparent about their past. No secrets, no surprises. Then he dropped the real bombshell. Alpha Omega never told him or Grand Hustle about the old federal paperwork. And then came the line that sealed everything. He essentially deceived us by failing to fully disclose the truth about his past, T.I. said. He followed it up coldly, adding that there was no room in our organization for dishonest or misleading behavior. That statement hit like a knockout punch. T.I. closed by saying he still wished Alpha Omega well financially, but made it absolutely clear that Grand Hustle would no longer be part of his story. And just like that, it was over. Alpha Omega was out. But the fallout didn't stop with the business split. Not long after the story hit and T.I. officially cut ties, reports started surfacing that Alpha Omega had been hospitalized. Rumors ran wild. People whispered everything from fights to setups until Alpha Omega himself confirmed it in a diss track. He had broken both of his legs. In March 2010, he released a song titled Green Light, aimed directly at T.I. In it, he rapped, "I broke both legs, so I had to fall back, regroup, reset, and then crawl back." The lyrics were raw, filled with pain and resentment. He accused T.I. of turning his back on him, reminding everyone that he was the muscle who once protected him when things got dangerous. He even claimed that when T.I. was facing his own legal problems, the rapper had called him in tears.
Alpha Omega didn't stop at music either. He went on to speak about it in interviews, most notably during his sit-down with DJ Vlad. There, he tried to reframe everything that had come out. He insisted he wasn't a DEA informant, saying his old case was actually handled by the ATF, not the DEA, carefully skipping over the fact that federal agencies often work together on major cases. But then came his most controversial explanation yet, one that stunned everyone who heard it. Alpha Omega said he didn't snitch, he lied. According to him, he never personally knew Ali Bakar at all. He claimed that when federal agents questioned him, they already had all the names, vehicles, and addresses, and he simply repeated back what they told him. He said he only did it to earn a reduced sentence, and since he didn't actually know the man, he didn't believe it counted as snitching. In his mind, what he did wasn't a betrayal of street code, it was a survival move. It was a complicated, controversial defense that only raised more questions. Some people saw a man trying to justify his past. Others saw someone refusing to take responsibility. But one thing was certain, Alpha Omega's name would never carry the same weight again. He tried to explain that he hadn't betrayed anyone he personally knew, but the streets weren't buying it. That kind of technical talk doesn't fly in a culture built on simple, absolute rules. In the streets, once your name gets tied to paperwork, there's no explaining it away. Years later, the scandal that ended Alpha Omega's rap career feels like something from another lifetime. But Cedric Zellas himself never vanished. He pivoted. Today, you'll find him on 9, not as the grand hustle enforcer, but as an OG voice, a commentator, and a street historian. He shows up on YouTube, sitting comfortably and talking about everything. The old Techwood Holmes days, the Red Dog Police era, the realities of prison life, and the dark side of the music industry. He's blunt, reflective, and unfiltered about all of it. He even opens up about his personal chaos too, admitting he has 24 children with over 20 different mothers. He talks about it without shame, calling it part of his truth. But when it comes to the industry, his tone gets serious. He describes it as toxic, a system built to drain people through alcohol, ego, exhaustion, and temptation. In more recent years, though, people have seen a different side of him, softer, more vulnerable. He's used his platform to search for a missing nephew, posting heartfelt pleas for any information or connection. For the first time, the world started to see Cedric Zellas the man, not the muscle. The old enforcer image has faded, replaced by something real, tired but still standing. You can see the wear in his voice, the weight of all those years. He's not hiding behind toughness anymore. He's just telling his story. Even now, Cedric insists that he was sacrificed to protect T.I.'s image at the worst possible time. In his eyes, he was a convenient casualty, cut loose when the king needed distance from anything that looked like cooperation. But Cedric still holds his head high. Real recognize real, he says, standing on the belief that the ones who truly know him know his heart, no matter what the paperwork says.